So looks like we are live. Hello everyone. I know. Oh wow, people are jumping the chat. I was expecting at least a few minutes quiet. Hey Mora, I'm honestly not looking forward to this. Go easy, okay? Go easy. I. How would you like me to refer to you? By the way, I know you go by a different handle on Twitter and Discord.
You can just call me Adel, because that's my real name.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try to avoid. Don't tell me your last name.
Oh
this,
no, don't
this is
worry, I
the internet.
won't.
Well, nice to meet you, Abel. We have been we haven't been discussing anything in DMs quite yet, but you saw me posted on Twitter and getting in the heat of things on that wonderful platform,
Yes, I sure did.
that wonderful, welcoming, warm platform.
Yeah, the best,
Yeah.
the best platform to have a civil debate.
Oh, totally. And yeah, and you wanted to take the spot of a not so nice individual, which I appreciate greatly for your willingness to have this conversation. Not
Totally.
many are, so it's good to have this open dialogue and feel like it can bridge some gaps between two very polarizing sides on a very hot issue within a fairly still insular community. So we try to I like to anyway actually have a conversation about these things. Yeah, I'll meme and I'll gab on Twitter because I find it funny. But yeah, generally I like to have good conversations about these things. So
We all like to meme a bit.
yeah, exactly. So before we get into anything, is there any things you want to just kind of throw out there? Any I guess any like personal stuff about like things you don't want to get into in terms of the conversation that you think might come up.
No, not really. I guess if anything should come up, I will let you know, but
Okay.
there's nothing at the top of my head.
Hmm. I'm honestly not looking forward to this. Yeah, I already read that more. King Crab, welcome to the stream. Wagman Pifting, what? Did Gamsa's Discord get nuked? As far as I've heard. No, I'm still connected to it, so nope. Maybe you got kicked off. Well, hopefully not. But anyway, so let's just jump right into it. So, would you like to start with like your stance? Because I don't know if you know mine fully, or if you want me to go through mine at all. If you've seen the open mic where I went through it a couple times, but I'm fully okay with like giving you the floor if you want to just share your perspective, and I can briefly recap mine for the stream.
You know what? Just feel free to recap yours. I think I know it, but I'm not 100% certain.
Okay. I am staunchly against female space marines, mainly because there has been no lore set up, at least next to none. And what little there has been done, it feels very tacked on very recently because of the growing advocacy movement. I'll call them that for right now. But the motivations behind their addition are not what the individuals who have been propagating it claim. Oftentimes, these people are very hypocritical, very politically motivated. The reason they want female space marines is because they are activists and ideologues first, and if they're even at all in any capacity fans, it's third or fourth on their list of priorities. They oftentimes will bring up political debate and political real world stuff when discussing this with the anti-femarine community. In my opinion, going mask off and showing that they have absolutely no interest in debating lore, they have absolutely no interest in lore, and they have absolutely no interest in the integrity of the setting of 40k. So for me, I'm against it wholeheartedly because it has no setup. The motivations behind it, for me, are clear as day politically motivated, and the people behind it are more interested in the power grab and the ability to manipulate and control a hobby space than they are actually, in their words, adding female representation, which we already have. And in my opinion, in a superior form with the Sisters of Battle and the Sisters of Silence, as well as numerous other female characters throughout the lore. So that is my stance. What is yours?
First of all, I can definitely see where you're coming from. The community of those who want female space marines can be quite uh, annoying, I guess. But my stand still is that I think female Space Marines would be a nice thing to add. Um, I see that there are problems lore wise. However, and I know this is said a lot, but Warhammer 40k, when it comes to lore, tends to retcon or change things quite regularly.
All right, now let me hit that point off the head because this one's easily debunked. When people say that, they over exaggerate it, and I'm not necessarily saying you are, but this is often the thing that's brought up, especially by Twitterites, right? Is like, oh, well, the lore is constantly shifting, it's constantly changing, so why would this be any different? Well, simply put, the lore doesn't change anywhere near as much as people suggest. Oftentimes what is changed, retconned, or shifted, most of that stuff has happened recently, and even then, the stuff that they've like the biggest thing that they've done is Primaris, and that isn't a retcon, that's an addition, and that's an addition nobody wanted, at least in the form that it came in. It's certainly not for the Space Marine faction. People wanted that for Chaos Space Marines. Personally, I think that would have been better, and that would have possibly led to Loyalist Primaris, which I think would have worked better in that order. But whatever. They did it the way they did. They did the Gary Stu call, pissed me off, and I still think that they're on repair duty right now when it comes to making it work. But generally speaking, in terms of the retcons and the shifts in the lore, nothing has changed massively in terms of the greater explanations of factions and characters and the universe since they were very first introduced in the lore. So a lot of people, when they say stuff like, oh, well, the lore is constantly shifting, the universe is constantly getting retconned, why is this any different? Things haven't changed since they were established the way that they are currently right now, in terms of the Space Marines, or the Tyranids, Orcs, even Necrons. Now, a lot of people like to use the Necron example. Necrons,
Pariahs, right?
yeah, Necrons haven't changed since they got their, I believe it was third or fourth edition, when they got their clarification lore about them. That hasn't changed since, and the same with the Imperium, with the Horus Heresy books, and that lore getting that lore getting expanded upon as well. Since the lore actually was being written and established properly, post second edition, we haven't seen the shifts and the changes on a scale that people always seem to imply when they say, "Oh, the lore is constantly changing." The only thing that's really shifting or quote unquote constantly changing is small details. Basically, the best way for me to put it, I think, is 40k has a canon, and these people imply it doesn't. It has a core foundation that has not shifted since it's been established. The only thing that is loose, retconnable, or alterable without any kind of massive backlash has been small things. But they haven't like completely erased the Horus Heresy, right? They haven't completely erased entire events. They haven't undone entire events. They've just tried to retell some of them with retcons. And again, even those come with massive backlash because, again, 40k does have a canon. It does have a community and in many ways writing accepted laws that have not and will not change. I mean, squats changed. I'm not even a fan of the changes with the squats, personally. I don't mind the aesthetic of the squats, but this is what King Crab said, by the way, in the chat. But for me, like that's an example I don't like. So, again, that
Yeah,
still
but
also
that
applies to what my point earlier, though, is that's
it'd be
all
more like a
recent stuff.
change, right? It would also be more like a change than a retcon, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, they did say they were all eaten by Tyranids, but then again, how likely is that?
And an entire race being entire, I guess, sub race because technically they're still human.
Yeah,
But entire race getting completely wiped out by the Tyranids, it's possible, but
yeah, but especially for a
spacefaring
sub race,
unlikely.
I
Yeah. So
feel like it's
the thing is, even then, I agree that wouldn't even really be a retcon. That is more of a change, and you can explain it by saying, okay, well, ever since they were attacked by the Tyranids and whatever happened in their lore, that can all be expanded upon and explained without causing an issue with the old lore, right?
yeah. The thing is, I would think that female Space Marines would be best not as a retcon, but as something new, kind of like Primaris. Uh, then again, I also feel like if Games Workshop had wanted to add female Space Marines, Primaris would have been the time to do it.
All right. So I one thing I really wanna get like up front, like towards the beginning here, is what's your personal interest in female space needs? Like, what's your motivation? What's for the desire for it? I guess.
Mm, honestly, I just think it would be nice to have some some more models.
Okay, so you just want new models.
Not just, but I think it's I don't know. It's I mean I don't want it for the sake of just including women now, but I feel like it would also make sense for an Imperium to also hire women as the super soldiers, especially considering Space Marines are
I
so
mean,
fucking rare.
they do Sisters of Battle, Sisters of Silence,
Yeah,
and
true.
again female guard.
But you can't say that female Space Marines wouldn't
In fact,
fill a role that these
the
can't.
only faction in all of the Imperium that doesn't have women is Space Marines, and that's because they were designed by the Emperor, and the Emperor chose not to put women in. And it's not exactly like he was an egalitarian.
I don't know if he was anything but the Emperor.
He was an asshole.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So the thing is, if you ask me, it's kind of par for the course. The idea that he would be like sexist about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
that's also
there is a
why I.
biology argument, but I agree in sci-fi, like that's kind
And
of meh.
besides, they get so fucking pumped full of steroids that I don't think it actually matters if you start out as a woman or as a man in the end.
No, like that's where I think things can get a bit pedantic generally with both sides. Is like the biology argument. It's like it's sci-fi. Actually,
Yeah,
it's not even really sci-fi. It's space fantasy. But that being said, again the
it
like
doesn't really care for what's real,
yeah, and
for what makes.
also I think what's more of a solid argument and what I think is far more of a block for female space marines is the monastic brotherhood aspect of the space marines. They're meant to be a brotherhood. Like this is your bros, your dudes. Like this is their fraternity essentially. And Sisters of Battle and Sisters of Silence are a sorority. They're a sisterhood. Their
Yeah,
part of their unity does come in the aspect that they're similar to one another in nearly all major aspects. And in real life, like we have real life monastic orders and sisterhoods, nunneries and stuff like that. And what makes as much as it is, I guess, a level of sexism in the real world, women tend to be closer to female friends and are more open with them than they are male friends, right? Like you can't tell male friends everything. There's some sensitive stuff that men won't get because they're not also women. And that I would say
vice
that
versa.
there's nothing sexist about that. It's a
No, it's just the
relatability
way it
thing.
is.
Yeah, it's just a relatability thing, and I think that's perfectly fine. And it's the same with guys, right? Like guys will tend to be closer to their male friends because you can tell your male friends personal shit that you can't tell your female friends. Now, that for me again, that's part of the theme of Space Marines, and that's the theme of Sisters of Battle, Sisters of Silence. Is that's a part of what makes their groupings so tight knit, and that it's a theme for me. That theme argument is much stronger than the genetic one.
Yeah, that's true. I think the genetic one is a cheap one, considering it's fiction.
Yeah, it's space fantasy.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can't really go into space fantasy and try to use logic, like real life logic.
Yeah. All right. So it's I'm happy. So your motivation seems so for you it's more about like the diversity of the range than it is something like a lore thing that you feel that needs to be added.
Yeah, I don't think it. I think if they were to add female space marines, adding them because people cried about it would be the wrong move.
All right. What is a way you would like them to be added that you think would work and would be tasteful?
That's a hard question. I do think that something like we've seen with the Primaris would be the best way. Call
Yeesh.
brewing some shit in his little Mars home.
Yeesh.
Because
It
I feel
says,
like,
I don't know.
but
I have a major problem with that. Like that's like for me, my major problem with Call is his Gary Stew element, and what you're asking for is another one.
yeah, that could be a problem. But I think that would be one of the most logical ways as to how you could get them in. Because again, I also feel like Call wouldn't really care if the Emperor had said only men can be Space Marines. Like even if he had said explicitly in that way, and like if he had said only men can be Space Marine and women are never allowed to be Space Marines, I feel like Call would be the only one to say I don't
Well,
give a
the Emperor
shit.
didn't say that second one, but he did say the first one.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, if he said explicitly women can never and shall never be Space Marines, and I don't think he ever said that.
No, never said that specifically.
And the thing is, yeah, Call regardless probably would just do his own thing.
All right. Would you like that to be slowly built up too, or do you want this like tomorrow?
I think having it slowly build up to would be better because we've seen with Primaris that dropping it with little to no build up is just not the best move. I mean, I like Primaris, I must admit that,
Hmm.
but I think they weren't at it in the best way. To just kind of say, oh, he's done this in secret for 10,000 years, it felt a bit like an excuse.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
anything, I think, who I could see also doing it in a way? Actually, Gilliman.
By himself?
No, but like being the one who would kickstart it in a way, slowly.
Hmm.
Because having more Space Marines is definitely good, and you are already limited now.
What
I
about
mean, it's
What
already.
about Fabius?
Oh, I don't know, could he? Yeah, probably. But I
Yeah,
feel like for
because
Gilliman it would be
for me, it
more
would
of a.
make more sense for Fabius Bile than Call.
Yeah, but more than Call, yeah.
Because with Fabius, he has, despite the fact that he doesn't like chaos, he has the backing and support of chaos that he can lean on. So with warp magic fuckery, I can believe it happening more that, and for me, that kind of alteration thematically, I think would fit chaos more, especially at Slanesh.
Honestly, some female warp fuckery Space Marines would be also really badass, and I wouldn't think that it would be a bad option in a way.
Yeah,
But I can guarantee you some people will be insulted by it because why do the women have to be evil?
everyone's evil. Like the Imperium's evil. The
Yeah, that's
Ultramarines are evil. The
definitely.
Salamanders, as good as they are in certain circumstances, they're evil too.
Yeah, I mean they burn children.
Yeah.
Sure, filthy Xenos children, but still.
And that's
Um,
and again, like to kind of pivot off of like your personal motivations, because it's it sounds pretty clear like where you're coming from is that you just want more range. You want more added, and you think this is just one way to do it, and you think it'd be cool to have you know female models for Space Marines. Although, do you acknowledge that physically they wouldn't look really any different?
yeah, no, I was meaning more like with heads. I
Yeah.
also think that would be a nice thing for maybe Games Workshop to do to just make some more female-looking heads. I mean,
That
it
I
doesn't
can
have to
agree
be
on.
canon, right?
That I can agree on. And the thing is, I brought that up in the open mic that I did. I don't know if you saw that, by the way, but the open
No, it
mic
was
that
too fucking sick.
no, I get it, I get it. The open mic that I did in place of our initial planned interview. In it, I brought up how I think that the realm that female Space Marines belong in is homebrews and fan fiction, and I think a lot of people devalue that when they act like they can't have like there's no way in hell they can have this unless it's canon, unless it's made official.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Bullshit. You can have it like people have female Space Marine armies right now.
Yep.
It's at home in their bins that they painted, and some of them have custom heads they bought on Etsy. Some they bought in they use Stormcast heads. Sisters of
Oh,
Battleheads
it's
are kind
so
of small,
impossible.
but yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's the issue.
but one thing I'm totally down for is them making homebrew sprue sets, like little custom nutty things that they just kind of throw together for people to make homebrew armies and fan
Yeah,
fiction armies. Like we're talking like Chaos Tyrannid upgrade sprue, Female Space Marine sprue, fucking different cultist sprues that could like make quirkier armies for Chaos. Like go ham with it, right?
yeah.
I think that would be cool. Female orc sprues, even though orcs don't have gender, like just go nuts with it.
But
Uh,
that wouldn't even be against the law, right? Isn't there like this one orc with titties in the Blood Bowl game?
I think so, but that orc looked the same as every other orc, just
Yeah, but it
plus
does have
titties.
titties. Exactly.
But like yeah, like I'm totally down for that kind of stuff. Like having fan homebrew stuff included and made officially in the terms of the miniatures. I'm totally down with. I'm just not like the lore and the canonization aspect of it. I just don't see any good argument for. And again, the
That's fair.
motivations by the majority of people that seem to support is even a light word, propagate
Demand.
and demand and protest for female space marines, and they act like they're in this big like world changing social movement, and that the moment we get female space marines, sexism is cured or some shit. Like they act hyper aggressive, very hostile, and they make it quite clear that the motivation behind this has absolutely no foundations in the love of the lore, the love of the community, and the love of everything that has been built around it. Like it's clearly the motivation is the political flag they weave and they wave. So to kind of hit that a little bit, what would you say is your perspective on the camp that supports female space marines? Not necessarily yourself, but would you say the majority are like what people like me think of them as, like political activists and ideologues?
I wouldn't say it's the majority, but it's definitely those who are the loudest.
Hmm.
I think that's always an issue with any movement or any sort of fan base. The annoying ones are rarely ever the majority, but you pay attention to them the most because they fuck you up the most.
Um, True. And I think you have a point there. Like that's with it. Like that's with every group. That's with every movement. They're the easiest to know because they're the loudest. But to give my personal anecdotal experience, you and one other are the only ones I have met that were reasonable about their perspective, in regards to this topic, but also even remotely. How do I put this? Even remotely human about it, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
It's not just Twitter. Like I discount Twitter a lot of the time because that's where the extremists typically are.
Yeah,
They only
Twitter doesn't count.
there's three types of people on Twitter. There's the extremist activists that like to act like they represent the majority of humanity. Then you have the trolls who like to go over there and fuck with those said activists, and then you have people like me who are over there both to troll, but also just because out of defiance, I'm on a platform that I know hates me. So, but yeah, I know that Twitter is not representative of this, but like even on like Facebook groups, forums, Reddit, and comment sections, generally speaking, what I encounter is I either encounter people who agree with my perspective, who are anti-female space marines, and for the same reasoning, it's they don't want this political ideology and movement to affect our hobby because again, it's pretty transparent the motivations. And yeah, I either encounter that, or if out of the pro fem marine camp, I encounter people who the very first thing they say to you if you don't agree with them is you're a sexist,
Yeah.
transphobe, Nazi, pro eugenics was a random
Oh,
one
definitely.
I got called.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
saw that one on Twitter.
yeah, and that one was out of left field because I have no idea where that topic even came from. But yeah, like these are the people that I've encountered in all platforms, And if we take it out of the internet, because the internet as a whole can be kind of crazy, when I go to my local hobby shop, even the female hobbyists there that play 40K, that I've played tournaments with, they're against female Space Marines. One of them's neutral on the topic, she doesn't really care, but two of them are against. And the guys all, like, I literally have a short on my channel where we, during a tournament, it was a full tournament, full house, like, there was over 20 guys there. I just recorded it real quick to get their candid opinion. And I said, "Hey guys, what's your take on pro female Space Marines?" And they laughed. They're like, "Fuck no! You want to play female Space Marines? Play Sisters of Battle. There you go. Or if you want them with less hair, play Sisters of Silence." That was the unanimous perspective. Not a single pro femarine person was in the hobby store.
I think there's less of them in real life, probably because a lot of these people don't leave their house. But
Don't throw shade on yourself, man. Come on.
I know. But I don't leave my house very often, so.
I mean, that's fine.
No, but for me, it's really not a matter of a political standpoint, because quite frankly, none of the political views I have would be even remotely tolerated in Warhammer 40k, because it's a fucking shithole.
Oh yeah, totally. Now,
And that's like kind of the appeal of it, right?
right, and that is the appeal of it. Actually, the thing is, not on the open mic about female Space Marines, but on my open mic about like what Warhammer needs as a hobby, someone brought up that, and they explained that they were a newer hobbyist, and they thought, you know, hey, there's this barrier to entry for a lot of people where like there's no good guy faction, there's no protagonist, there's no good guys, and I had to explain to them, well, that's the point, that's the charm. What you're asking to change is the core of the universe. This is a grimdark. This is that like juncture where the person clearly was under the under the misconception that the universe had to change to make it welcoming for everybody. Well, the point of anything created is there's always going to be an audience it's naturally not inclined for. Like, there will be people of groups that it's not, you know, targeted for that will get into it, but generally speaking, every hobby, every video game, every movie, every story ever written inherently is exclusionary on some level.
Yeah.
And that's because it has a target audience. It has an intended for and built-in themes targeted at a specific set of people. You can't make a universal story. Even romance, which is universal to an extent, has something about it, the way you tell it, that's going to be exclusionary. The perspective you tell it from is going to be exclusionary. So that's just how real life works, let alone fiction. So it's a weird thing that is kind of concerning, like this idea that everything has to be open from all sides and needs to be made for everyone, which just simply isn't possible. So yeah, like it's a strange thing. But to kind of gear back to the main topic here. All right, so I got your personal perspective. I got your opinion on. So when it comes, to kind of circle back to it a little bit. So with your experience, like where does one find the silent majority of pro female Space Marines, like advocates like yourself, like the ones that are motivated not by any kind of political ideology, but you just want the range added to, and the lore you feel can be adapted to allow it without that major big of a deal kind of a change? Where do we find this silent majority?
I would say that the most I found were actually on Discord servers to an extent, especially in the role playing area. Like, basically glorified fanfiction writers.
Okay.
That's where I've seen a lot of people who were pro female Space Marines or were neutral towards it, and they didn't go out of their way to bother people who disagreed with them.
Okay.
Like quite a few role playing servers where there's people who are pro female space marine and like against it, and there are regular discussions about it too, but it's always pretty calm.
Right.
Like,
Real quick, I just want to pause real quick because I want to explain something I forgot to explain. Apologies. So, everybody watching right now, there will be calls I'm going to open up for at the end. We're going to see how Abel's feeling towards the end of the stream about, like if he feels like you guys are not going to be too nice to him, he's going to head out and I'll take the calls alone. But, yeah, we're gonna see how it goes and try to be respectful, and because I really do want Abel to be a part of that and have conversations with everybody. So yeah, we will open up to calls at the end. If you guys wanna jump into call lines now and wait there, we got 3 waiting call rooms, and the link to the call line Discord is in the description of the stream. I will spam that in the chat right now, just so you guys have the link at hand. Yep, but we will open up for calls at the end. There we go. Alrighty, so apologies for that interruption.
no problem.
Right. So the problem with that part of the advocacy being much quieter is people like myself, and I would argue the majority of the 40K community, because we only deal with the extremists that are politically motivated. There is that general perception, which I still hold, by the way. I not that I don't believe you or don't trust you. It's just not my experience.
I can understand that.
But with the rest of us, we're seeing people who are hostile, that are hitting back against us, that are screaming at the company day in and day out and calling anybody who doesn't agree on any basis sexist, transphobic, homophobic, racist, whatever buzzwords you want to choose from. They've gone down the list. So what would you say should be done to kind of help facilitate more people siding with your silent majority, if the silent majority continues to be silent? Like, because if all we ever deal with is the hostile people who have terrible excuses and explanations for why they want what they want, we're going to continue fighting against it vehemently. And I know I'm going to, because that's, I just simply had, other than yourself and one other, I've just simply not encountered anybody that has even a remote believable explanation for why they want it.
Yeah. The issue is, I don't think there's much that can be done, because a lot of people like to stay quiet, and the assholes like to be loud. And there's not really anything you can do against that. You can, of course, try that more people who are more calm about the situation talk on it, but you can't force them.
Right. And that's true.
I think it's not really something where there is a solution that like where you can say do this and then everyone does it and it works for the better.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem with a lot of topics, be it Warhammer, female space marines, or even stuff like, I don't know, the LGBT community. Fuck it,
Right.
You will never get rid of the loud people properly.
Now, alright, so
I mean, especially in like a hobby area, I don't have the authority to tell someone to not be annoying.
I mean, you're allowed to tell someone that. You just don't have the authority to make it true.
Exactly.
Right.
I can't expect them to then do it.
Yeah, and likewise, that's same for me. That's same for anybody in the hobby space. Yeah. But I will. So it sounds like and again, I want to thank you again for coming on, man. It sounds like your motivations seem a lot more pure for things. But let me ask you this: is there a reason why, outside of the models, outside of the plastic, is there a reason female Space Marines need to be canonized for people to play them?
No,
No, so that's
I don't think you
solely
have. I
your
don't.
foundation.
I don't think you have to canonize something for people to play it. I mean, there are a bunch of kit bash armies
Exactly.
that work just fine.
And
I would
would
just like
you
to see them.
recognize? Yeah, would you recognize the arguments that, because this is my argument, and this, I don't know too many people who make the same one as me, but this is one of mine, that making female Space Marines canon in fact hurts their personal lore and the extent to which one can fanfic them.
I can definitely see this. I mean, obviously, canonizing something is going to take away some creativity or
Yeah.
some creative freedoms.
Yeah, and I that's a big thing that I think would happen if they were canonized. Because the thing is, I personally am a huge advocate for people making fan fiction, for people writing their own custom lore and their custom ideas for their factions. And female Space Marines are one of those things I think people can be allowed to make. If you want to homebrew your own minis and homebrew your own stuff like that for female Space Marines, I think that's totally fine. It's a personal project. It's a personal thing for your stuff. And no one should have the right to tell you can't do that, and no one should bully you just because you think that. And I think anybody who goes after people and is aggressive simply for making a female Space Marine army is being unreasonable. That being said, though, I think it's I think that we can come to a common ground, and if GW produced upgrade sprues for homebrew stuff, which I think is far better to advocate for because it's not so. Because something like that could not just be for female Space Marines. It could be about a lot of other homebrew stuff that people want. Like, again, maybe Chaos Tyranid heads and custom minis, custom upgrade sprues for Imperial Guard, possibly leading to us, actually getting some really cool, nutty switch ups to make our own custom Imperial Guard regiments. Like it could be something that the whole community can get behind because it's not
Yeah.
one angle from one group's perspective, but one that everyone can benefit from. And I think that's something far more advantageous to advocate for, and it also implies to me an actual love for the hobby than just being like, okay, well, I want female Space Marines, and I think that's necessary. Would you agree with that, or do you think that it's too much to ask, and that you would prefer female Space Marines over that?
Oh, I don't think homebrew sprues are too much to ask. In fact, I think it's a pretty good concept
Hmm.
because it allows for more freedom
All right.
and less need for green stuff, which, yikes.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of common ground and angles that you and the rest of, my camp at least, the anti-femarine community, can get along with. There are some people in the anti-femarine community who are like, you're not even allowed to homebrew it, which I think is ridiculous. But
Yeah, but those are, from what I've seen, few and far in between.
yeah, I haven't seen that too much. That's like the extremists on this side of things.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, it's like we don't want political ideology and activists changing the hobby for the sake of quote unquote representation when it's all bullshit. Like they just want power, they just want control, they just want to manipulate a hobby space. And as much as I'm sure, and I get the impression you're very honest about your side of things, you don't see that's not your motivation. That's not why you want it. You just want more range of minis, and you think the lore can change for it. But and I don't I
Not
don't
necessarily change, but I think it would be nice to have some new lore. I think retconning is always a slippery slope,
yeah.
and changing something that's already been there to such an extent.
For me personally, I would prefer them to actually add to the Sisters of Battle in terms of lore. I've always, I've kind of talked about it recently with a friend of mine on Discord named Havor, but she and I have discussed it, and we really want there to be like a sub-order of Fenrisian Sisters of Battle. Well, she wants like a totally dedicated like Valkyrie power armored female group that's not Sisters of Battle, that it's its own army completely separated. I think I'd be fine with it being a subsidiary chapter equivalent. I think they're called orders amongst the sisters, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Uh,
Those orders.
yeah, like of Valkyries from Fenris. I think that'd be really cool. Like there, in my opinion, if we're gonna push for female advocacy and representation in the hobby, which I know like your motivation isn't political, but if we're gonna go down that route, I think that's something GW should do far sooner than focusing on female space marines. Because another big thing is for me and a lot of people, female space marines are going to take away inherently from Sisters of Battle and Sisters of Silence, because they very much fill that identity role in the universe. And and also just if we take out the identity part in the universe, once GW has female space marines they can write lore about and do stuff about, and they know, or at the very least feel will sell better, they're going to abandon properly, because we've only recently had them actually focusing at all on Sisters of Battle in terms of the tabletop. And we're going to lose that if they have this other avenue that people have been screaming at them to focus on. So I'd
which
rather...
are also Space Marines, which already get a lot
Exactly, and that is going to create so much animosity. Because as it is, Space Marines get updated way too fucking much, and get way too much obsessive love from GW compared to the Sisters of Battle, Sisters of Silence. So it's just, again, this is another angle from which it shows that most pro-fem marine advocates aren't really making arguments from a hobbyist perspective. It's from an ideological and activist perspective, because if it was from a hobbyist perspective, they would acknowledge that point more readily and actually have a good counter to it, rather than just saying, okay, you're a sexist. They just completely...
But that's the perfect counter on Twitter.
Apparently.
Didn't you know? You don't like what I say? Well, unfortunately, you're a sexist now.
Exactly. Fuck all of you.
That's how I solve my problems.
Alright, so I got... Just cut. Please come back. Okay, what? I have no idea why it just disconnected there. Alright, okay, so I'm back up to green. I have no idea what just happened. Anyway, so I got your perspective on your personal motivations, why you want female space marines, and to a degree, like, there's a level of it I think that can be catered to, and again, that being like homebrew upgrade sprues, I think that would be nice. I still would like, lore-wise, for them to focus on Sisters of Battle, Sisters of Silence long before they expand into the idea of female space marines. And also, if they're going to do that, they really need to do it properly. They can't just be like, oh, by the way, Call figured it out. Like yesterday, like it was a pet project, he had a diary, he was like, yeah, I figured it out, let's do it.
He actually did it for 10,000 years, you just didn't know.
Exactly, I'm kind of sick of that. So, yeah, they would actually have to properly build up for it.
Yeah, I think if they build something, they shouldn't do it in like this off-screen kind of manner.
Yeah, like that would piss a lot of people off, and rightfully so, in my opinion. But again, as it stands now, I'm against it. There's been no build-up, and again, the motivations behind it right now, especially, I think are politically motivated, and I don't want politics to affect a hobby space. So, yeah, but, I want to thank you for coming on. Is there any other angle you'd like to ask my perspective on, or is there any other perspective I maybe not have asked you about that you want to bring up in this interview, or?
I don't think so.
All right, so
most has been said.
Okay. Are you? So I've been keeping my eye on the chat. It's been here and there. Generally, are you okay for the call line?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're down for the call line. All right, guys, we're gonna open up for calls. Link in the description of the stream if you guys want to join the call lines. I'm also gonna spam the link again. Hold on. Okay. Copy. Yeah. So if you guys want to ask me and Abel anything, feel free to jump right in the call line Discord, and we'll pull you in one at a time. All right, so first person we're going to pull in is Guamzin Knox. Hello, Guamzin. How you doing?
Hello,
Hello.
How you doing today?
I'm doing very good. Um, so I'm sorry.
You okay?
Yeah, so mainly for my side, I would like to preface this and saying that I am kind of new to Warhammer 40K. So
What
if
do you
I
mean? What do you mean by kind of new, if I may ask?
I've been looking up at everyone's like lore videos. I read several books, mainly the I've begun reading Cyphers Kane's books, and I've actually been trying to research why there was so much hatred towards
Have you
female
read the
space marines.
Horus? Have you? Okay.
No, mainly because of financial reasons.
Okay.
Uh, so I was just like I was thinking as to ways female space marines. Well, that's actually the thing. If we are, or if GW was going to put a sort of female space marine, I don't think they really need to go in the direction of female space marines. But I would say probably more along the lines of a augmented Sisters of Battle would might be something that they
Uh,
could do instead. Maybe
can
not
I?
as offensive.
Yeah. Can I make my statement why I don't agree with that?
Hmm.
For me, and I kind of I should have brought this up directly with you, Abel. I forgot to, but this is a good opportunity because you made me think of it. So, a huge reason why a lot of the community loves Sisters of Battle and why part of the motivation for a lot of people to fight back against female Space Marines being to protect their identity in the universe and also their uniqueness in the universe is Sisters of Battle are able to fight on par with Space Marines and even surpass them to the point where during the Age of Strife, you said you're new, so you probably don't know about that arc of the lore. Sorry, not Age of Strife. Age of Apostasy. During the Age of Apostasy, when they were known as the Brides of the Emperor, and they were very first established as a militaristic force underneath a I can't.
George Van Dyke, right?
Yes, correct. Goj Van Tyre. Which I really hate that guy. But yeah, he was an asshole. He was a total dickhead, and he tricked them into thinking he was an apostle of the Emperor, and they were able to hold out against numerous chapters of Space Marines sieging Terra to bring Goj to justice. And they fought on par with them and held them at bay, despite the fact that Goj's forces had no Space Marines and the other side had several chapters. They were able to hold their ground. Now, that's a part of that was the defenses of Terra are very strong, like especially the palace. It is very hard to breach that place. It's automated defenses, it's cannons, it's weapon emplacements, but Space Marines can make it past those, and especially since Space Marines are familiar with the home territory of Terra, yeah, like that's only going to do so much. To really hold them at bay, you need soldiers, capable ones, and the sisters served that entry, and that was before they even en masse had the training and the organization that they do in the current modern paradigm of 40k. As as the brides of the emperor, they were fewer in number and they were less well trained. And not all, if I recall correctly, not all of them really had access to power armor either. Though I think at that point they were getting equipped properly. Regardless, without any of the same genetic advantages of the Space Marines, they were able to kick their asses regardless. And that is actually why a lot of people fucking love them. Because they're able to close a genetic gap with hard work and sheer force of will, as well as faith in themselves and the Emperor. And I think that is a very much unintentional or otherwise an allegory for the relationship between men and women in the real world. Men have a genetic advantage over women in the sense of physical strength. We are designed to get physically bigger and stronger than them. That's just how nature designed us. But that doesn't mean we're stronger overall. Women close that gap and can close that gap if they put more hard work in than a man does. If they are focused and driven to do it, they can overcome that genetic barrier in the physical sense. But even without that, women are able to can fight in their own ways that are very unique to them and are still potent against necessarily a physically stronger opponent, like using intelligence, strategy, flexibility, both literally and in a social sense. Like I've always liked that allegory between the two sets. And I think if they were to physically augment sisters to even a half the degree that Space Marines are, that would devalue that element to them. That would take away from that identity that they have, and it at that point they'd be less impressive, they'd be less notable, and that would kill a part of their identity.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that now that you mention it. I did read up on all that, at least like researched it. Then, like, I'm just thinking of ways that it could be implemented. As to why it would be, he kind of cut me down by the legs, like right there with the allegory between men and women. I guess like I mean, it depends, because another reason you could put female space marines or like that, I know, is like you guys who don't like that to happen. I absolutely understand that, and heck, before I used to totally agree with you guys. But if they could, another way, blasphemous as it is, would be have Wibuti Gilliman like try and mimic his what the Emperor did, and just sort of the female space race was like the failure that is the result, so that way it was somewhat canon and yet ends up as a failure.
I mean, we already have that
It,
technically, because thing is, in the old lore, there was an attempt to make a woman a space marine, and her body ripped itself apart from the inside out.
oh,
Delicious.
Yeah,
of
that that
40K.
it's 40k. Like her body ripped itself apart trying to augment to the organs. So it's been attempted in the lore. It just ended horribly.
Then I read somewhere, or I looked up the fact that the Emperor might have not saying anything in chat, but the Emperor might have made a dark deal with the Chaos Gods in order for the knowledge to help him make Space
Oh yeah,
Marines.
everybody knows that. Like that's been in the lore for years. Thing is, that's a person to person thing. The lore hints at it being a possibility. The chaos gods themselves, through Horus, convinced him at the very least that that was the case. Is it the case? That's kind of up to interpretation. Personally, I do take it that the Emperor did some kind of warp fuckery at the very least to create the Primarchs, but that again, there's as much notes against it as there is for it. It's one of those. It's one of the soft lore moments where foundationally we know why the Primarchs are made and that the Emperor knew about Chaos before their creation and wanted to fight against Chaos. And that's like the concrete we know. The soft part is the interpretation in did he use that which he hates to create the Primarchs, that way he could fight against them, and maybe that's part of the motivation why he didn't tell them about Chaos, because they were created using some of that warp fuckery. That could have led to them that by his logic falling to Chaos more readily because that they were partially created by them. Again, it's up to interpretation very strongly in this case, and it's person to person.
Okay, gotcha. So then maybe, because I keep on, for some reason, whenever I think female space marine, I go like, you have two lines of thought on that. You can either call Sister Battles female space marines, or you can go go
Which a lot of people do.
to
Like
yeah,
they fill that role, and in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinions, in a much cooler, more interesting way than just having Space Marines with tits.
yeah, and then you can go one step above them, and you can just call Saint Celestine and uh all of the saints basically Space Marines because they seem to be basically superhuman, considering the fact that I think it was Saint Celestine that got stabbed via Abaddon stabbing her, I think, through the back, or
Uh,
was basically they're able to like withstand stuff that should absolutely kill a regular human.
hmm.
And I don't know, it's like whenever people bring in the female space marines, I'm like, you there are ways, but in every single way,
Well, the problem
I
is, and again, this is comes back to like the why they need to be built up properly if they're going to do them, and again, if they were to, regardless of how or how much they build up right this moment, there's just too politically charged for anyone to take it as just a creative decision. It would be politically motivated, as far as I'm and a lot of people are concerned currently. But one thing I would like to
absolutely.
note is a lot of people, bend over backwards and have to twist their heads into a knot to come up with reasoning and explanation to why female space marines, or if how female space marines could be done currently. My big thing is it just needs to be done properly, and again, the motivation can't be political. But yeah, as of right now, it's because you have to do like the brain pretzel to come up with it, ideas of how it will work, that it can't be done right now, politically motivated or otherwise, because they just simply haven't laid the foundation. In
Yeah,
fact, the
the
the current foundations we have are against it.
yeah, I think like the water is too murky with trust for GW, especially all the stuff they've been doing.
Oh yeah. Um, I won't.
So
I'm gonna end your call there, though, man. You've been on for a while. I want to appreciate you coming on. But I do want to open up a spot for someone to come in. We don't have anybody waiting, but I hope someone will hop in. But thank you for coming on. Abel, did you want to say
okay,
anything
just
to him before he
what
goes?
uh,
Um, there wasn't really much to say except that I agree that we probably should not make the Sisters of Bel like genetically enhanced because it would take away from who they are.
Yes. Ball, thank you for the super chat, brother. Over 25 years in the hobby, and I have never seen so much crap over just political stuff like female space marines. They just have no respect for the lore. I just wish 40k died.
uh, so one final thing before I go, for anyone who out so for the female Viking sisters battle, I want to direct everyone over to fanfic.net, the multiverse part of Warhammer 40k fanfiction. That's is actually pretty faithful, I think, to the lore as well as adding that kind of stuff.
It should be. I mean, Fenrisian women are
Mm.
already natural born warriors and are physically bigger and stronger than like average human women, given Fenris's environment. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It'd be very interesting to see if GW ever did that, and I would welcome that long before I would even consider female space marines.
and thanks for having me on, guys.
Yep, no problem. Thank you for coming on.
Mhm.
All right. Alrighty. So again, call lines are open, guys. I will share the links again real quick. Yeah, call lines are open. Feel free to jump into any of them, and we'll pull you into the main call. But yeah, to hit Ball's point, Lord just wish 40k died. I don't want 40k to die. I just want them to stop fucking with it. But in the meantime, I am working on my own universe, so there's that.
Oh, like your entirely own universe or like based on something?
It's entirely my own, but like everything made nowadays, there's most of it is inspired by history, and a lot of movies I grew up watching. I can share some artwork with you in DMs.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah,
But
we got.
honestly, I think it's really hard to make a setting that is 100% original at this
Well,
point.
it's impossible right now,
Yeah,
actually. Especially if we go by the actual definition of the word original, which means wholly
true.
not inspired or derived from anything else. It's just not possible. All the core story archetypes have been done. The hero story, man versus nature, all of that has
Yeah,
been done. So it's
isn't there
impossible to
like
have
this?
zero connection to something else. So by the
Isn't there like
strictest
this saying
definition of the word
of
original, yeah, no, that's not possible.
definitely not? Isn't there even the saying of every story has been written already?
Yeah, pretty much every story has been written. It's just what people mean by original now. I think most of the time is they mean they mean the way in which you tell the story, like, and the way its aesthetic changes. Like you can make the aesthetic quote unquote original, and you can make the way it's told different. But other than that, it like pure originality again just cannot be done anymore. And I think a lot of people misunderstand like the term originality. But yeah, let me share some concept art with you. Yeah, the logo Scarlet Games, that's my company. Let's see. Yeah, those are both part of the Gretsch
It's done.
faction. This is a battle artwork between the Sovereignty and the Warborn. Yeah, just throwing stuff out to him while we wait for someone else to possibly hop into a call.
Are those werewolves?
A good story, not original. Yeah. I mean, even Tolkien wasn't technically speaking original. Again, by the strict definition of the word original. His method of telling it, though, and what he crafted and the combination of things that he put into it, that's what made it original in the sense that most people mean when they say original.
Didn't even say that he was inspired by numerous.
Oh yeah, he did.
stories.
He did. He's like
Well,
by
he was
Old
inspired
Norse mythology. He was inspired by, Celtic myths and legends. He was very much inspired by that stuff as well as history. So yeah, like I said, pure originality can't exist anymore. But we come up with ways to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, to make it feel original.
By the way, if you ever need 3D models, hit me up because I can do those.
Oh, I also 3D model. Hold on.
Nice.
Yes. I actually 3D printed a couple of test prints already. But, yeah. Hold on. I got some screenshots of some ones we got done. Yeah, this is one that is done and had a test print done. Same with this bad boy. Yeah.
ZBrush, a man of culture.
Yes.
Oh, the little worm. Or a big one.
Yeah, that's a Gretsch Tomb Maker. Still haven't got 2D art for it yet, but working on it.
Well, that does sound big.
Yeah. But yeah, bringing on more people for projects and stuff would be nice because that has been it's been slow by myself. But yeah, I'm working on another grimdark sci-fi universe.
Nice.
I'm also writing the first novel, which is the few chapters that I've shared with some folks for updates on the Patreon and stuff. They seem to like it a lot, so that's
That's
least
nice.
At least I know people are enjoying it. But yeah, the slowest part of the thing has been making the models and doing the test prints. Alright, so Temporary Alien Chosen Unicorn and Temporary Alien both joined the Discord, but they're not waiting in any calls. So... Okay. Slime Marble, Sapphirus, Mark. It's actually Omegon pretend to be Nick. What the hell are you guys talking about? I'm working on my own story, but some planets that are near Earth was shaped by a group of time travelers that found a way to go backwards and turned few worlds into fantasy. Interesting. Warhammer is Dream Rule 34 content. You would think. I'm working on a novel series, but my patience is not great for story writing. I am a very patient person.
I'm working on a setting, but for pen and paper purposes.
Yeah, I mean, I did that for a D&D campaign a while back, but yeah, Warglave's taken all my creative juices.
Yep. For me, the prime issue is that I'm okay at writing, but not like full on books and stuff. So it's just easier to do some pen and paper settings.
All right. We'll wait a couple more minutes, see if anyone wants to hop in, but if not, we'll probably call it here. In the meantime, I guess I'll share a few more concept arts with you. Yeah, this is another species. This is another species / faction in the lore. That's the Volk. Be quiet, Necron.
Their legs freaking the fuck out.
That's the idea. That's a Rathan. They're kobolds, right? Sorry, not kobolds. Gnolls. Sorry.
Yeah, gnolls.
Yeah, anthropomorphic hyenas. It's pretty much the idea. That's like the physical inspiration for the Rathan. So the Folk, Church of Rathan, Warborn, Sovereignty. Sovereignty has 2 factions in it, technically. Most of the human-derived factions do. It has the Helsings, which are genetic super soldiers, and then you have Jekylls, which are your common soldiery. All of the Sovereignty are vampires, pretty much is like their theme. A lot of the inspirations for each of the factions in Warglaive Gothic, that's the name of the tabletop game I'm developing, are basically all from like my favorite movies. Obviously, I didn't just like, oh, vampires, there we go. There's no more to them than that. There's lengthy explanation for how they are, the way that they are in the universe and stuff like that. The lore has been nutty to write, and it's quite extensive. My notes are a mess, but they're very consistent at least. But yeah. Let's see, I'll share one more with you.
Do you use like a program to keep track of the notes, or do you just...
I have it handwritten in 2 notebooks, and I have a doc that I have printed off as a PDF that has basically in brackets how everything works. It's kind of like the broad strokes of stuff. And my raw notes, the ones that are kind of written in a mess form that I still haven't organized, are also in a Google Doc.
I tried to use Obsidian, I think is the name, for a while, but it just doesn't work.
Oh yeah.
The helmet reminds me a bit of samurai helmets from the Terran Republic.
Yeah, they're the Terrans in the universe are the like vanilla humans, more or less. They just keep up with everybody via technology, and their culture is very militant. It's kind of a mix between Japanese culture, and I mean old school, like fundamentalist Japanese culture, influenced their aesthetic and the way that their whole faction kind of came to be. But it's not just like Asian folks amongst them. Like the Terrans are made up of pretty much all descents from the human race. It's just like that's like that and like American military kind of like Americana military culture very much make up their empire. Thank you both for the super chat, brother. I need Warborn still waiting. You got one piece of, well, technically you got 5 pieces of artwork for that. I mean, it takes a while. I'm on my own. I'm doing all the models. I'm writing all the lore. The only thing I'm not doing is doing the concept art. Which, by the way, if anyone wants to know, Purist, also known as Jacob Jones and Jacob Jones Illustrations, he does all the concept art. Great freelance artist. He's got a huge backlog right now, so unfortunately, I can't necessarily recommend him unless you're very patient and you can wait like the next 2 years because he's got a lot of people. Like as it is, I'm waiting a long time for my next piece. But yeah, he's great though. So it looks like we got nobody else in the call. So I want to thank you again, Abel, for coming on, man. Thank you for having this conversation.
Fun.
I appreciate it greatly, and it is good to know that there are some people out there who are wanting female space marines and it not being coming from a place of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Just have to work hard enough.
yeah, and I greatly appreciate you coming on. Thanks to
Yeah, it was
everybody
fun.
who joined the stream, and thank you for participating, and thanks majorly to Ball for the 2 super chats, man. That was super generous of you. And yeah, have an amazing night, everybody. Bye-bye.